Milton Friedman was famous for reminding us that inflation is a monetary phenomenon. Yes, you can have one price for one product go up because of increased demand or technological change, but for the overall price level to increase, there has to be government involvement, printing too much money. Now, of course, when I say printing too much money, nowadays, that's a figurative statement. The Federal Reserve creates money through open market operations and balance sheet operations, things like that. But creating too much money, creating too much liquidity, however you want to phrase it, if you're creating more liquidity and more money than the economy needs at a current price level, it's going to wind up bidding up prices. That's what inflation is. And that's what we got a couple of years ago. It became really bad. Now, I tell my Democratic friends that, you know what? This wasn't necessarily Biden's fault because the Fed, stepped on the accelerator and started expanding its balance sheets in a radical fashion back during the pandemic in spring of 2020 when Trump was still in the White House. So in some sense, you could say it was the Trump Federal Reserve that started the problem. Now, of course, if Biden even knew what the Fed was, he probably would have applauded that. And certainly all through 2021, when Biden was in the White House, the Fed kept expanding its balance sheet. That's why we got the breakout of inflation in 2022. And we're still dealing with the legacy of that now. Now, your question, though, was also about the politics of inflation. Joe Biden, at least his campaign team, they know that he has a problem because even though the inflation rate isn't as high as it was, say in 2022, early 2023, consumers are still going to the store and they're saying, well, my soda is still this much more expensive than it used to be. My milk is this much more expensive. Bacon is, we still know that our prices are very high. And in many cases, our incomes haven't caught up. That's the main political problem that the Biden White House has to deal with. That's why his approval ratings on economics are pretty low, is because, even though inflation hasn't increased as fast, people are still behind. Their wages, their salaries have not caught up to inflation, and that creates dissatisfaction. So the White House, because they don't really have any other alternative, they want to make it seem like it's the fault of business. Oh, greedflation, shrinkflation, and I noticed that years and years ago. It used to be that when you bought a thing of ice cream, it was 2 quarts or something like that. Now it's like 1 3/4 or 1.5 quarts. Now, is that because businesses are trying to maximize profits? Of course they're trying to maximize profits. That's their job. But businesses are always experimenting. What will consumers accept? In a free enterprise economy, consumers are the ultimate king. And so if you're a company and your profit margins are being squeezed or you're losing money, you have inflation in terms of the cost of your inputs, well, you have 2 choices. You can increase the price of your product and keep it the same size, or you can sell less for the same price. And you're going to make whatever decision that you think will make consumers happiest, or in this case, least unhappy. And that's why we sometimes get shrinkflation. That's why we sometimes get a lot of these policies that might annoy us, but it's not businesses being any greedier or more profit maximizing than they ever were. It's simply businesses dealing with the reality of what their costs are, what the competitive situation is in the market. And if they think that we'll be happier with a smaller package, that's the route they're going to take. But ultimately, the fault, of course, is with the government's bad monetary policy.